Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gen V Season 1, Episode 7, a fantastic episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This was the episodes of twists, turns, and reveals. First and foremost, I love us finding out the truth about Shetty, like getting a better picture and understanding. That last episode kind of made it pretty clear. This episode, like, just made you go, no. If you didn't get it last episode, I hate soups and I want them dead. Cardossa's not big into this because my thing is, was it simply a way to nullify powers? Is that what the Woods was originally meant to be? And that's what Cardossa's like, oh, that's what I was meant to do. But Adira's like, no, this was always supposed to go down the extreme route. And he's like, well, then what if I tell Vought? She's like, oh, so you want to tell Vought that you made a sickness that can kill soups? Vought, the soup company. Yeah, let's see how they feel about that. So it almost feels like that whole, I don't know if I'm drawing too, the whole conspiracy theory, which, when people invent certain things, it just seems like they just happen to die and oops, the patent for that thing kind of went away. It's kind of one of those things of like, why would, it's almost that conversation of, oh, we have a cure for cancer, but we're going to string it along because treatments, it's not a one-to-one, but it feels kind of similar in that vein. Because once again, what is Vought, if anything else, at least from Edgar's standpoint, what was Vought? A pharmaceutical company. So it's just, it's like, oh, why would we get rid of our biggest money maker? I mean, and especially considering this isn't Edgar's like show anymore. This is, if anything, it's kind of Homelander's, but let's not forget from time to time Ashley's CEO. We haven't had a lot of time to spend with her as a CEO. We've gotten a little bit of it in this show, but we don't really know what kind of, is she just her as a CEO? Is she more like giving off Stillwell energy? Is she giving off more Edgar energy? I think she's more Stillwell than anything. Truth be told, she's still more herself in that position, and just regardless. So, okay, so Indira kind of made it clear about where her stance on this, and let's go ahead and jump ahead a little bit since I'm talking about Indira. I was not expecting her to meet up with Mallory, and I was like, whoa. I was like, is there a connection here? But then I was like, no, because we found out what happened to Indira's family and her daughter. I was like, but it's like, no, that happened well after the fact is that Mallory, like, already retired because, what happened to her grandkids. I don't know if Mallory's ever fully come out of retirement. Technically speaking, yes, she's worked with the boys, but I don't know if she's ever fully come out of retirement. But yeah, her and Indira talk, like, despite her anger, because yeah, she's angry and she has pointed a lot of people towards Soup. She put the boys together in the first place. Even Butcher called her out in season 1. It's like, yeah, you got me hopped up and riled and told me I could get revenge on Homelander. You pointed me like a loaded gun, and then the moment you got what you like, you went through what you went through, and you just abandoned me. So she has hate for the Suits, but her hate doesn't burn as deep as Butcher. She even, when she was talking to Indira, she was even like, yo, you sound like a fellow countryman of yours with that hatred you have burning inside of you. And, because even, she's like, oh, I could call the cops to get you arrested. Because Indira's like, well, if I'm not going to do it with you, I can do it without you. Because of her connections, she, even beforehand, I'm sure there's a lot of carryover from her days back in the day working with the boys, putting the squad together of all the soups and locations and, weaknesses and stuff like that. But I'm sure she still kept up a lot of that information probably up to date even more recently, and Indira wanted to use those connections to try and it's like, we could take out all the Suits, but even Mallory's like, that's a war crime, that's genocide. But for Indira, it's like, we're both in the same boat of like, once again, it's just that you're so consumed with revenge. And yes, Mallory is mad. Her situation's interesting too, because the person responsible for killing her grandkids, she didn't even kill him. She was actually going to use him, but he ended up killing himself. So doesn't make that pain go away. She knows that first and foremost. Even getting her revenge didn't satiate that. That pain is still there. It didn't bring her grandchildren back, So I am curious who Mallory was talking to when she was like telling someone to keep an eye on Indira. I wonder, is it the boys? I don't know what their relationship is like post season 3. Once they found out about her connection to her connection specifically to Soldier Boy and everything, and Payback from back in the 80s. So I'm like, I don't know what there, because like the last interaction her and Butcher had was episode 3 of last season, but she tried to call him in the season finale about Homelander getting Ryan, but that we didn't, obviously he didn't pick up the phone, so we don't know where they stand or where she currently stands with the rest of the boys, considering in the aftermath of everything. I'm sure her and MM's relationship is kind of fucked because of the whole Soldier Boy of it all, but like I said, even in the aftermath of season 3, I don't know, because I'm like wondering who else could she be contacting but them. We don't really, there's really no other person to really connect with in that capacity, but maybe it's some other secret weapon or some other ally she's got. I have no idea. But I mean, since I'm still on the Indira train, I'll go ahead and talk about her child. What Jordan and Marie ended up finding out. They found out that Indira's daughter died on the airplane from, what was it, episode 4 of The Boys, season 1? Because that was the thing people were wondering too. Like, once again, her daughter had to die by a soup's hand, right? But some people had theorized, well, it had to be something from the original Boys, some tragedy that happened. It had to be something that we as the audience would be aware of, that we could directly correlate and connect with. And it's just like, yeah, it turns out the flight that Homelander and Maeve were a part of, and it ended up crashing. Her husband and daughter were on board. You're like, geez, that sucks. And it's so, once again, it's just so interesting. And I always love the domino effect of, like, you never know what actions are going to affect someone in some shape or form. It's just, it's very much, it gives off, and I wonder if this the parallel they were kind of going for. I mean, it's any good form of storytelling, but also, like, a great example would be like, giving birth to a villain would be like the MCU. Like, because of Age of Ultron, you got Civil War in many different facets on both the hero front, because that was like the biggest thing leading up to the issues in Civil War were it was all carryover from Age of Ultron in both on the hero front and even the motivation behind the villain. So it's so interesting. It feels like that's kind of the vibe they're going for, and I thought that was such a great reveal, finding out that's what it was. And that's why she got her job at Vought. She wanted to find out what really happened and ultimately find out. She now knows Homelander was responsible. I'm assuming like she dug through that on her own, like, because I'm sure like Edgar, anyone that's top level at Vought probably knew. We know Stillwell knew he was responsible for it, and he spun the truth. We also know that, of course Edgar would know. So it makes you wonder. I mean, Indira probably got herself a pretty high position there, but like maybe just through connections or what. But it's like, how did you actually get access to some information like that is going to be super buried, You'd almost think there would be no reports of that existing, but I guess it's like, you got to find that paper trail somewhere. Even if it's not a physical one, maybe there was a digital one and she just had it printed out. But I have no idea how she fully got her hands on that information. But dude, once again, just that beautiful storytelling device of like, you never know what actions are creating a supervillain in some shape or form. And this was Indira's origin story, her villain story, her villainous beginnings. That, and once again, it's very much in that, I keep going back to it, Zemo of it all. Who's Zemo? Just a regular dude. Well, we find out he's actually a Baron, but he's just a normal human, no powers. So it feels like that is a direct parallel they're making in that capacity. So that's so interesting that that this is the path that she's on. I love that Cardosa came into her office just to drink a little bit of her whiskey and then piss in the bottle and tells her to drink it and calls her the good old see you next Tuesday. So that was interesting. I mean, once again, it's understandable because he did not sign up for this, because he's like, yeah, if I do this and Vought finds out, they will murder me, because I will be my chemical baby that I made, that being this virus, basically will cut into Vaught's massive money cash cow that is superheroes. So, but kind of on a different front of the episode, we have the whole situation with so we're picking up with Andre Kate, Marie, and Jordan. And obviously it's like, well, Kate's trying to get close to Shetty, but it's like, well, we can't really do that because she's out of town. But it's like, no, she's just busy in the woods. But she also had her meeting with Mallory. The rest of the team doesn't really quite trust her because she's not on her pills. Her powers are like, activated, and like she's hearing people's voices. I figured that's what that was kind of, they were talking about that last episode, but I interpreted it, and it was kind of my fault, but I thought because when she interacts with people, it makes it so that like once she's like messed with someone's head, then I thought she would end up, absorbing their thoughts in that capacity. But it's like, she's just a full blown being able, she has telepathy always. I mean, to be fair, it's like what happened when she dragged them all into her head. Once again, the only person she grabbed was Marie, but she sent out a shockwave because like her power, she's that powerful. Once again, she's on her Professor X status. So, and I think I even said that exact same thing last episode, that she's the Professor X of the story in that regard. I mean, truth be told, is ironically enough, she's more Magneto, but we'll get to that discussion later on in that ways, but. None of the team wants to trust her. She's very good. I mean, she's in their head all the time, which Marie is a lot more willing to forgive her because it's like, yeah, what she did is messed up, but also she was someone that was taken advantage of. I mean, considering Marie's background, she is a lot more willing to forgive because she carries the guilt of what she's done, and she found a kindred spirit in Kate where it's like, I mean, it doesn't seem like Andre nor Jordan, maybe not even Emma, have like a story like theirs where it's like a tragedy came about because of their powers. So, and it's like, you helped me when I felt like I was at my lowest, so she wanted to be there for Kate. It's like, yeah, we have our issues with her, but it's like, I do believe her powers are beyond her control, because Marie also understands like why I killed my parents was, my powers were out of control. I couldn't control what I was doing back then. So I even love that moment her and Jordan have where it's like, and you need to stop like changing into a boy like every time you want to make a point. He's like, fine. She's like, fine. And they're kind of laughing because it's like this cute moment. It's like, oh, was that kind of our first fight to some extent, even though we've been fighting up until now, but it's a little different because there's kind of a situationship that's going on right now that we're not really going to label. We're not going to worry about like labels like boyfriend, girlfriend. Let's leave it as a situationship right now. But yeah, they're thinking like, right, we can't really fully trust Emma, so how about we get the information ourselves, but we have to give it to someone that we can trust. And they look to a picture of Newman. I was like, that's the last person you want to tell. But then I had to pause. I was like, or is she? Because we don't fully know where Newman's allegiances lie. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to say it mainly lies with herself, because she doesn't have any connection to Vought anymore. Her only connection to Vought, the only reason she ever looked out for Vought was because that was her looking out more so for Edgar than Vought. But still, it's like, and she has no like allegiances to Homelander. Like, she appeases him just because it's like, yeah, you want to be on he's too much of a monster. You want to be on his good side, not his bad side. So there's that. But other than that, she doesn't have any other allegiances to Vought. Because even the stuff that she did with Homelander, that was helping out Homelander, not necessarily for Vaught's sake. So that made me go like, she might be the person you need to turn to. Yeah, she is a person that will look out for her own best interest, but I do believe that there on some level there is a situation of she does have other people. I mean, obviously she's looking out for her daughter, but I think it's hard to say fully whether Victoria really has a lot of other people's best interests at heart, or is it just hers? Like, oh, I'm looking out for me and mine alone. You know what I mean? And that's a very like innate part of any human being. We can all be selfish in some ways, in some capacities. So I'm so curious to. Even this episode, it's like, well, we still don't fully know where your allegiances lie. So I thought, really, and on that topic, I love that Marie went to see Newman. I was like, I don't know if you should tell her. And the moment she was around Newman, like when Newman immediately recognized, I was like, she's your fucking benefactor. It's like, it never crossed my mind. Of course it would be Newman. Well, because in my head I was thinking like, is it going to be Edgar? Because once again, since he got outed from Vought last season of The Boys, we haven't heard a peep from him. So I didn't know if like he had something to do with this, but she did. And in retrospect, it makes so much sense. Because my thought was, well, if it's Edgar, he's most likely arming the world with another weapon against Homelander. Which part of me wonders, is that what Victoria is doing? It's like, well, I can use another help, power-wise, taking down Homelander, which we'll get to in a second. But also it's like, right, it makes sense. They literally have the same history of, oh, you accidentally killed your parents, and now you got sent to Red River. And it's like, it wasn't, because it wasn't until she was like, oh yeah, like, check my blood, and she could sense the compound V in Victoria's blood. I was like, dude. And then Victoria was like, give me a knife. I was like, what? I was like, no. And she cuts herself. I was like, you're a fucking bloodbender. I was like, holy shit. That was a great reveal. I was like, wow, that's, once again, we've all just been under the assumption, oh, she's a head popper, but it's like, it makes so much sense. I mean, to be fair, this show has been telegraphing it, because what did Marie do? Oh, she popped Rufus's dick like Victoria pops heads. But even then, you go back to how her parents died. The explosion of blood, it's like, in retrospect, it's like, oh, it kind of reminds me of how Victoria finished off Tony when she made his entire body explode. I was like, fuck me for not even thinking about it. Once again, they've been telegraphing it for a while, like, oh, we've been planting the seeds. That is such an amazing reveal. But then I start thinking to myself, I'm like, so why does Victoria have the cloudy eye? I was like, well, they're not getting rid of that. Obviously, it's like they've had that element to her power since season 2. Well, finale. They kind of hid that from us during the whole court situation. Which I should also note, I did not know that they blamed Stormfront for that. Maybe they mentioned that in season... I don't remember them ever mentioning that in season 3. Is this the first time they've ever outright mentioned that Stormfront is the one that caught flack for all of that, which is so interesting? I mean, because even Homelander at times was like, did you do that? And she was like, no, I had nothing to do with it. She was like, maybe Edgar has something to do with it, which, funny enough, he technically did. But I don't know. I just thought that, I don't think they ever mentioned that Stormfront was the one that took blame. And like I said, maybe they did, but I don't remember them ever saying that. So that's interesting, because like, they kind of swept over that. Like, we as the audience and our heroes, the moment they're like, oh, she's the head popper, the boys and like Annie all figured, oh, she's the one. Well, I'm sure, and Homelander knows because of her powers too, that she was the head popper because of files that Edgar had on her. But they're the only ones who know that she's, I don't think anyone else knows. Like, I would assume A-Train, nor the Deep, nor Ashley. I mean, I don't, maybe now that Ashley's CEO, maybe she knows. But even Maeve, I don't think any of them knew. I think Homelander might be the only one that's a part of the 7 who knows about Newman. It's kind of their secret, so. But like I said, it makes so much sense why Victoria took such an interest in Marie, because we are literally the same. We have the same background. We have the same powers. Oh, right. That's the conversation I also want to go back to. I was wondering, like, I was like, okay, so Victoria's still, obviously the cloudy eye thing is a part of her power. So I'm like, so does that mean eventually Marie, once she gets better control of her powers, will she be able to, will her eyes do the same thing? But then I also started thinking, was like, well, we've seen a lot of parallel abilities that manifest and kind of work differently for different people. The one I keep always going back to is Termite and Emma. Once again, same abilities, but they work differently. Granted, we don't know how big Termite could ever get. He was only ever got human size. But to shrink or to grow back to normal size, he would never have to purge or throw up just to get small, nor like have to gorge to get bigger. Emma does. So it is the same power. It works differently. So it could just be like the cloudy eye thing could be something very specific to Victoria. It could be an extension of another aspect of that power. Or maybe, like I said, maybe eventually Marie might get it, or maybe she won't. Maybe, So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And obviously Marie ended up telling her about, oh yeah, like the virus is being made. And it's like, oh, don't worry, I'll handle that. But, and it's that interest. I think this is interesting too, because they made the point in episode 2 that, oh, Marie's going to be the Black Starlight. Who did Victoria go to last season to try and join forces with? Starlight. But Starlight was like, go fuck yourself. And now Marie is the person, she's like, hey, you can be the first black girl in the 7, have real power and reach to be able to do good. Because it's like, even as a leader of Godolphin U, like, oh, the guardian of Godolphin U, it's like, that won't really get you far. It won't really do much. Vought will kind of have you shut down. Oh, and that adult facility I kind of helped you from getting sent to, yeah, Vought will lock your ass up there faster than you could even, like, say the word Vought. So you might want to keep your head down and do good, make your way, work your way up. You know, you and me were the same. No one ever had to do never did anything for us. We fought tooth and nail to be where we are. So it is a situation of, like I said, she wants Marie to be in that same, because she sees a lot of herself in Marie, but I think it's also the aspect of, well, because now it also makes me wonder, are we going to find out, is that what Zoe's power is? Because I didn't even think about that at the time, but we see, like, with parents, like, we see, hey, Ryan got his dad's powers. Seems like he's got most of his dad's powers. We see it with Polarity and Andre, that they have the same powers. So that makes you go, like, so that means Zoe's going to be a bloodbender too. You'd assume so, because once again, they don't really get into the science of it, but whatever power that is does. Well, I have to take that back, because it's like, Zoe's not, well, yeah, because Zoe's probably is her biological. I was thinking, like, yeah, just Homelander having kids is the whole thing because he was an experiment. Like, it's possible for Supes to have kids. It just never really, yeah, obviously. I mean, especially when you just have a regular kid and you just put them with V. Once again, it seems like Ryan's still the only natural born Supe that we're aware of. So... But so, like, my point is, I assume Zoe being a bloodbender too is going to be interesting, because we still haven't cut back to her since she got the V, so we haven't really seen. I guess Victoria wouldn't have to worry about that too much, because maybe her bloodbending abilities, which we could assume this extends to Marie as well, any head popping would be nullified, because you're able to kind of, like, because you're probably, like, rushing all the blood in the body to explode it, like she did Rufus's penis. So it's like, if you're able to have the power to counteract that. So head poppers can't head pop other head poppers. So, and we've got a 3-way, well, bloodbenders, and you can't really affect each other in that same way, because even if they could, you'd be able to kind of counteract it with your own blood bending. So just, it's interesting. Now, if there's 3 of them, once again, makes it pretty, like, hey, maybe we could do some damage against Homelander, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily what Victoria's really aiming for, even though he's kind of an issue, but we'll see. Because Newman is still presenting herself a certain way, because she was at that, God, what was that thing? Like, that thing that she was kind of speaking at the college about superhero issues, and even talking about Homelander, and obviously, like, it's this really interesting divide we're getting, and it's like, well, we've already seen it permeate the world of the boys already, because we'd already gotten it even in season 2, like, the whole, like, very, like, strong, like, overzealous patriotism in season 2. Then you got that more in season 3 with, like, more people, Homelander's base backing him up, and you got more of that because I forgot someone had mentioned, like, oh yeah, like, Rufus is a massive Homelander fan. So it's like, right when they're talking about, like, oh, Homelander should go to jail, it's like, for most of America, it's like, you're locking up America's, like, our the great American son by doing that. S-O-N son, but he is probably light S-U-N son is what ironic, considering, like, Golden Boy is supposed to be the next Homelander and everything, right? But there's also people who think, like, whoa, that was super messed up what Homelander did, killing that guy at the end. So obviously, once again, I mean, obviously very reflective of the world, how massively divided this country is and has been for a while. Like, everyone kind of sticks to their lane and they dig deep. And Victoria's trying to be, like, the middle ground in it, and just obviously not everyone's messing with her. You even saw, because I was trying to read that thing that was written in red when it was, like, when they showed her picture on the wall, and beside it was, like, all that A-Train stuff from the drink stuff. But then I was like, what is all that red? What does it say in red? And it's like, oh, Soup Lives Matter. It's like, okay. Because they look at her, because they'd even written in, like, white beside it as her being cop. It's like, oh, like, her being, like, they treat her as, like, she's very anti-Soup. So it's the same parallel of being, like, pro-cop. It's being treated in that same, well, I guess, it'd be more like being anti-Soup is like being anti-cop. So, but she's coming from the ground of like, no, I'm trying to look at the vested interest for both Supes and humans. She's even saying like, wow, we need to put together like some people like who can stand and kind of in a more political sense represent the Supe population, which I think it speaks volumes that Victoria hasn't come out as a superhero, as a Supe, because I'm sure it would probably hurt her base. I mean, for one, very much like Marie, where they're like, oh yeah, having disgusting powers like that, and like it's not going to get you far in this world. Yeah, if she ever revealed what her powers were, American people wouldn't vibe with it, demographically speaking. So it's like, yeah. I just thought that, I just think that's such an interesting thing, and that just back and forth. I do think it's so interesting. Obviously, Sam ended up kicking it with Rufus. I was like, last person you want to be kicking with, which I also didn't think about it. Oh, because Rufus is dickless for the most part. I mean, I'm sure he still has some of his dick, but I was like, oh, I didn't even think about the fact is he's kind of the Seth of this series. I mean, we know Seth's penis broke off, but snapped off, but we don't know how much of it snapped off, or like if he's like a Ken doll down there, somewhat smooth, or whether he's like Rufus where he has some of the shaft left. I don't know. But yeah, I can't believe he just walk around normal. I was like, I guess you just kind of have to accept it as is, you rapey piece of shit. But I was like, oh, Sam, don't hang out with him. He's literally the worst person at the campus you could hang around. But yeah, they go to the rally, and him and the others are very like pro Supe and boo, Victoria, you suck. You're not looking out for Supes. You don't care about us. You don't speak for us, even though she is one. And I'm sure for them, they'd probably be even more pissed if she, because it's like, right, we wear our superpowers on our sleeves. What did you do? You hid in plain sight. So I'm sure that would not do well for her to reveal herself at this point as a Supe. She probably never would. Because once again, it probably would hurt her demographically speaking, especially when you're trying to you're going for the VP position. Well, she already is VP. Well, because I don't remember how, it's been a little while after season 3, but I don't know if the elections already happened and everything. Because he was, Bobby, because I was trying to remember. I know his character's name is Robert Singer, but I think he's still Bobby in the sense. Either way, I know that he was running for president last season, and she's the VP. But I'm like, I don't remember during the conversation. I think they said VP, so I think they're both already elected. I think it already did happen last season, so she is VP. So, because they are referring to her as vice president this episode, so I think the election already happened. Either way. If she's one step away from the full seat of power in the U.S., so I'm sure she's biding her time until she gets the opportunity to kind of snatch that up. So that becomes a question of well, what is she gonna do? Once again, we don't fully know what Newman's all about. And her meeting with Cardosa later on, I was like, oh, you poor bad. I had to keep pausing. I was like, when's the head popping coming? When's it coming? And then his nose started bleeding. I'm like, okay, here it comes. And he's like, oh, the air must be dropped. Blew up his head. Because, right, she now has the virus. Granted, the virus can be useful for her. She can wipe out Homelander or anyone that might get in her way or she has an issue with. So there's that. But there's also the fact is that, it does, if you give someone a small enough amount, it can make them get them sick and get rid of their powers. It doesn't just have to be used as a weapon. I didn't even talk about the disgusting thing we had at the beginning. It's just seeing those kids locked up together. One of them is infected. It's not airborne yet. It has to be, you have to come in direct contact with the person. But yeah, she was even suggesting let's make it airborne. It's yo, you are really leaning into it. Once again, Mallory wasn't kidding when she was once again, it's genocide, so there's no getting around that, but it's yo, you're ready to genocide an entire group of people. Holy shit. And you don't realize how twisted and evil that is. Once again, it doesn't, you can understand where someone's coming from. You don't have to agree with it. And I don't agree with that mentality her or Butcher have about being so anti-Supe, because not everyone fits that mode. I think that's the interesting duality of this universe and also the juxtaposition between this and The Boys. The Seven, for the most part, not everyone, but for the most part in The Boys, the Sevens are the biggest. The Seven are pieces of shit, with the exception of Maeve, Starlight, and Supersonic, because he was part of the Seven for a little bit. Black Noir's kind of in that complicated spot because he's done some fucked up stuff, but you know, you also find out about his circumstances of payback. So it's like, but everyone else is, you know, Deep, Homelander, A-Train. Don't know enough about Translucent. He was a perverted piece of shit. So we can lump that in because obviously his son's got his proclivities. So, but our cast, they've done some effed up stuff, but for the most part, our cast are good people. You know, they've done some stuff they're not proud of, but overall, they're just very good kids. So I think that's meant to be the juxtaposition, which we'll get to that in a little bit about that, the division of the characters. But yeah, Cardosa's dead and Victoria's got the virus. So what she does with it, I mean, like I said, I don't think she's going to destroy it because it's like, well, you got one of a kind soup killing thing that could also. I mean, granted, it is super contagious, so you might want to probably use it in an isolated place if you want to take down someone like Homelander or anyone that's an issue. Like, just how Victoria plans to use that, I'm so curious. I mean, like, she could easily destroy it, but it's like, why get rid of something that is basically your golden bullet to kill Homelander? Kind of a sure thing, potentially, once again, because you don't know if there's any other way to take down Homelander, considering he seems to be top tier, top of the line soup that, like, nothing else can really compare. So, once again, we'll have to wait and see. But, then there was everything with Andre and Kate. Obviously, that's still a gnarly mess. Obviously, that wasn't going to get cleaned up after last episode. It's been like probably like a couple hours since last episode, so maybe a day or two. But it's like, yeah, it's still a fresh enough wound for everyone to still have beef. But yeah, Andre's dad was there with Cameron to have an interview, and then he started talking at one point, and he kind of started like saying the wrong word. I was like, what's going on with him? And I don't know if it's a seizure or something, but something active happened and his powers started going wild. I mean, even that elevator, the ambulance ride, that was insane. Like, stuff is getting flung around. The woman's arm looked like, I don't know whether it was like a situation of something came and like broke her arm or what, because she kept getting hit in the face, but I could have sworn there was like a frame where you see her arm and it looked like maybe some bones were because it looked like her arm was bloody. So I don't know if that was because obviously he's pulling everything, like his magnetic abilities are like going wild. So I was like, could she have she might have a metal plate in her arm? Because if I was in that situation, if you're unaware, I have a metal plate on my leg, so like I'd be fucked. That would be excruciating. I don't know if the screw on my leg is metal. I'd assume it. I mean, technically I have 2 screws on my leg, but I'd assume they're metal. But I definitely have a metal plate on my left leg. But well, in my leg, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So I don't know if I was misreading that. Like I said, like at one point her arm was up and it was bleeding and bloody. I was like, that could have just been from being hit by stuff, but I don't know if that was supposed to be like, no, there's metal on her arm and it's getting pulled out. But yeah, like Andre doing everything he can to try and counteract it. But I think that's supposed to be representative of just either, hey, my dad is, because he's older and he has more practice with his powers, he's that much stronger than me that I can barely hold it off. Or is it just because he's in his state that he's in right now, his power's going free reign, so it's more because he's not holding it back. Andre's getting hit with everything and trying to push like the full force of his dad's abilities back. But, I mean, his dad's in, you know, and this is a complicated time for Andre because since the interview with Tech Knight, which was episode 4, that's the last time he talked to his dad, because it's just like for him, I guess even Kate doesn't fully know how much he knows. You know, because it's still that thing of, oh, was he kind of forced into this? Did he willingly become a part of this? Regardless of it all, he knows something. And yes, he was trying to protect Andre, but it's still that thing of, yeah, protecting yours, looking out for yours and yours alone. Just like Victoria and all that, you know? So I'm curious. I'm wondering, was he just naturally sick? Or could it be like, I was about to say, like, we know, well, because I was kind of about to make a correlation with Tech Knight and his brain situation, but it's like, no, that leads to his proclivity with holes, but not, I did. It's not a direct correlation with his powers. I'm curious, could that be a thing with polarity? Could it be his powers and years of it that had that effect, or is it just natural human illness of, yeah, he got sick and maybe it's like a, maybe, I don't know what that could be. Like I said, it seemed like he was having a seizure, but I don't know. I mean, obviously, well, because it's like he can't be pushing himself that much. I mean, Kate, it makes sense. She pushes herself too much. It literally can cause like an aneurysm and stuff like that, and blood vessels popping. But it's unclear with polarity. Like I said, it could just be natural sickness of cancer or something for all we know. So Andre didn't join up with the others later on. He's just kicking it with his dad because he doesn't want to leave his dad's side. There's a scene I forgot and skipped over, and that was where Jordan ended up causing a distraction so that Marie could go see Victoria. And I love her walking over to what was her face's name? I don't remember, but it's like, hey, aren't you the girl that fucking tortured Emma? And she's like, oh no, I gave her a pie. Before she could even say something, Jordan like used her power and broke her jaw. I was like, hey, yo. Oh god, I was like, looking like home dude from Invincible. I don't remember the character's name. The college episode, the dude that was voiced by Ezra Miller. Yeah, that's the only way I can. That's the only thing I remember about the character. I don't actually remember his name. But yeah, like when Mark like bitch slapped him and broke his damn jaw, it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, hey yo, are you gonna be stuck like that? But then it's like, so it seems like at the very least she has a regenerative ability. But Jordan like started a fight to distract them and ended up walking away once the like brawl kind of spread out. Granted, that one girl was trying to record her being like, oh, let's see if you stay number 5 now, Jordan. Phone got dropped partway through, so, and Jordan just kind of walked away, so we'll see if she suffers ramifications. Well, if they suffer ramifications for that. We'll have to wait and see, but then we had that scene between Kate and Indira, and Kate was trying to get the truth out of Indira, but she's like, hey, no, don't worry. Like, I'm not going to hurt you. It's like us. We get to start over. But she's like, no, you're trying to kill all Soups, not you. I was like, I don't buy this. But could there be some twisted part of her that legitimately wants to save Kate too? But Kate's reading her mind. She's like, oh, no, you are telling the truth. I believe you. It's like, yeah, we could start over. It's like, I lost my family and I was so angry and lost. But then I found you. 2 people who had lost family. We found family in each other. Oh, it's beautiful. It's great. We could start over. I was like, I don't know if I would believe this, Kate. And you see that look on Indira's face. It's like, no. Because for one, her hatred burns too brightly. 2, she's doing her best to lie to Kate. It's like, that speaks volumes about Indira. She's such a damn good liar that she's able to convince even Kate. Because I'm assuming that slept by, like, Kate probably did believe it for a little bit, but Indira probably couldn't hide it. Like, maybe the moment Kate touched her, maybe the moment that happened, it was kind of like like she couldn't keep her thoughts completely in control. But the moment they walked in later on, it's like, what's going on, Kate? I was like, Kate sided with Indira, didn't she? But it's like, nope, she has Indira in control. She's like, tell them what you told me. And she put it all out there, you know. We found out the truth about Godolkin. Godolkin isn't a college meant to like, oh, for Soups to exist and live in harmony, yada, yada. This place exists. Kind of diving into the fucked up history that is everything Vought related. As we know, Vought stems from Nazis, you know, what that was. So now we're finding out like, okay, cool. So this school was never meant to help students. It was always meant to experiment on them. The Woods isn't an outlier. The Woods, it's basically the true face of Godolkin U. And you're like, interesting. But it's like, yeah, we never did anything to you. It's like, yeah, but doesn't change the fact is that because from Indira's point of view, it's like, it might not have been you, but what have you all done? You might not mean to do it, but each and every one of you killed your own parents. The fact of the matter is you're uncontrollable, and you all, once again, very butcher-like, you all need to be wiped out. A lot of you, so. And Kate ended up making Indira slit her own throat. And Marie wanted to save her, but Kate stopped her, and she's like, I know I'm making you relive that pain. It's like, right, the lady in episode 1 I was able to save, I didn't have a repeat of what happened to my mom, but now, like, I'm a hero. I'm supposed to do the right thing because she was told by told by Victoria the two paths that are in front of her. You either save, you can try and just be the hero, like try and save people. That's not going to work out for you. Trust me. Or you can just kind of bite your tongue and ride this out and gain real power and becoming the first black woman in the seven. But that moment of just like her wanting to do the right thing, and it's like, nah, Indira bleeds out and dies. I was like, was not expecting that. I guess it's supposed to be like the direct parallel to some extent, because it's like, hey, well, Butcher's in the process of dying. His rage and anger led him down his path, so it's kind of his undoing. And Stillwell, kind of is in a similar boat where she ended up obviously dying in the very last episode of season 1, but still. And now what I thought was so interesting is we are having a division of the group. Now, we don't know where Andre stands, but we see where Emma, Marie, and Jordan stand. But then we got, because he went to that rally, and understand, like, that's the thing about something like this. And I think that's, once again, that beautiful yet horrifying parallel to the real life. It's a whole situation with Sam, because he is someone that got indoctrinated. Because what is he? He's a young man that is, who has been caged up and experimented on and ostracized. He's been so alone. And today was like the first time he ever got to have fun with other people his own age. He got to drink beer. He got to smoke. Got to have fun. Like, he got to be a normal person where he's never had that his entire life. And now, like, realizing like, oh, humans hate us. They treat us differently, because who was it that did all this terrible shit to him? It wasn't Soups that did this terrible stuff to him. It was humans like Brink, like Indira, like Cardosa. It's like, they're the ones that did it to me. So Kate and him are on that same side of like, right, what did you do, Kate? And she's like, and Sam's like, justice. And despite their issues, they look to each other, because it's like, right, we were both controlled by these pieces of shit humans. And now we're seeing the division. Very like, we saw it with The Boys last season. It's not the same thing, right? But the whole thing of like the boys being divided the way they were, where Huey and Butcher were on their like war path, but the rest of the boys were kind of stuck in like waiting, and it's like they were down two different paths. Now the more direct parallel is, we're on, like, this is some X-Men shit right here where lines are being drawn. Other people had already been making the comparisons that this is even more X-Men than any, especially because it's like, this is like Xavier's School for the Gifted. But I brought it up before that Kate, power-wise, is kind of like the, she's the Xavier of the show, of the series, but stance and, position-wise, she's the Magneto of the show, and her and Sam are kind of in that boat. And I guess Marie's going to be more the Professor X of it all, maybe. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing to do, just having that direct parallel like that, and just like making us get this little inkling to that, of that division. Now the question then becomes, where is Andre going to stand when this is all said and done? Because it's still unclear. We could have an even split down the middle if Andre decides to be on Sam and Kate's side of things. It's sad too, because like him and Emma, but now they're going to be on opposite sides, because, and especially considering Sam was like, he had that whole thing about Emma leaving and he didn't want her to leave, and now they might be on opposite sides of this, and what this means for them going forward. We'll ultimately have to wait to see. Next episode is the season finale. It's going to be wild to see what goes down and how they end up wrapping this season. And obviously this is going to be setting the stage for, probably give us at least even more insight, because this episode gave us a lot of insight into what we can expect with season 4 of The Boys. But where this leads off will, be in season 4, tie into season 4 of The Boys, but in what capacities, in what ways, because Newman's like the big threat that the boys have to deal with next. Because literally the end of last season was Butcher being like, yeah, she's got to go. So we'll have to wait to see where the season finale takes us with all of this, how it ends up, and what that means setting up for not even just the future of the show, but also the future of the boys, just the boys universe as a whole. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good